tonight. We got a show to talk about tonight. Donnie McClurkin is being he's got hit with a lawsuit. You know, a young man is alleging that he was SA'd by Donnie McClurkin. If you don't know who Donnie McClurkin is, he's a pastor, a gospel singer. He made the famous song "We Fall Down, but We Get Up." We fall down, but we get up. He made that song. And listen, these are all allegations. I'm not gonna pile on Donnie McClurkin, and this is more of a greater indictment on the black church. Is the black church gay? Respectfully. I mean, from Eddie Long to I believe Jamal Bryant, all these different pastors being caught with young boys. We're here to talk about it tonight. Let me actually put that in the poll. Give me 1 second. Put that in the poll. Hold on, give me 1 second. Is the black church, give me 1 second, y'all. The black church a safe haven for LGBTQ? I'm just here to ask the question. Cause you hear about all of these, young boys being violated in the black church. What is going on in the black church? What is going on in the black church? Why are all of these young black boys being essayed by black pastors? And there's always been, in my opinion, and as much as people say that LGBTQ is not um, um, welcomed in the black church, I disagree. There's a lot of activities for LGBTQ plus boys to do in church. I mean, you got to think about it. They got the choir, you got the flag team, you got different things, and I feel like a lot of LGBTQ kids, young boys, they gravitate to that, especially the choir. They gravitate towards that. They find a safe haven. Yeah, the message in the church every now and then they may hear things that are talking down on their sexuality, on the way that they're living, but they feel that that's a safe haven for them still. And you keep hearing these stories of young black boys being essayed by pastors. What is going on in the black church? Why are these black boys being violated? You got a lot of respectfully, zesty black boys in there playing the tambourine. Pop, 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 pop. And then some predatory black preacher who's confused about his sexuality, and here he goes preying on a young black boy maybe confused about his sexuality. Um, and listen, I am not here to put charges or talk down upon Donnie McClurkin. This is a lawsuit. He's only been accused. I have no knowledge of him being, um, you know, um, involved with this young boy. This is only a lawsuit. I'm not going to put those charges on Donnie McClurkin. I believe that he deserves his day in court, and I believe that if this person is lying on him, that they should be charged. And I believe if Donnie McClurkin has done this to this young man, he should be charged. But I have no knowledge. I'm not here to indict Donnie McClurkin. This is more of a greater indictment on the black church. Why does this keep happening in the black church? Why are black young boys who are maybe confused about their sexuality, maybe sexually confused, or maybe they are just LGBTQ plus? Why are they being preyed upon in the black church? What is going on in the black church? You would think that this would be a safe haven for LGBTQ kids. You would think this would be a place for them to get some rescuing, salvation. Um, Yeah, man. Let's read the charges, and I want to know what you guys' opinion are. So far we have one vote. I said, "Is the black church a safe haven for LGBTQ?" Someone said no, but I just want to know, man. Give me your thoughts. Let me read this report of Donnie McClurkin. Allegedly, he's in a lawsuit. Allegedly, they're saying that a young man was SA'd. Now, I want to know your thoughts. I want to know you guys' opinion because we keep seeing stories like this. How many stories are we going to see of black kids in the church, young black boys, maybe confused about their sexuality or maybe they're LGBTQ plus, and they're being violated or being preyed upon some, zesty black preacher? I mean, we saw this maybe 5, 6 years ago, maybe 10 years ago with Eddie Long and that whole case. We've seen similar cases to this of young LGBTQ boys being preyed upon. Why does this keep happening in the black church? Is there a problem? Is there a homosexual problem in the black church that needs to be addressed? I'm here to ask the question. Now, let me read this report of Donnie McClurkin. It says, lawsuit claims Donnie McClurkin abused young man during a Pray the Gay Away session. Wow, wow. So here, Donnie McClurkin, respectfully, and this is all allegedly, here Donnie McClurkin, well, we got a couple people in the building. Make sure you hit that like button. Here, Donnie McClurkin is, I'm guessing, giving some type of tutelage or giving some type of mentorship or maybe some guidance counseling when it comes to LGBTQ plus boys to pray the gay away, but instead of praying the gay away, he's enticing the gay, allegedly. This is what the lawsuit is alleging. So this happened during a pray the gay away session. Let's read. Furthermore, a new lawsuit alleges that Donnie McClurkin, Grammy Award-winning gospel singer and pastor, sexually abused a young man over several years and later wrote an email apologizing for being a dirty old man. I want to know if that email exists. Does the young boy have the email? Can we see that evidence? We need to see that as a black community. Respectfully, Donnie McClurkin, he's a pastor in my community, respectfully. Now, if you're putting now, he's listen. He's done a lot. He's done a lot of great things in our community. He's had the church with no walls out in Roosevelt. He's done a lot of great things in the community. He has a pastor. He has a church not too far from where I live. Now, if this is true, we need to see proof of the emails. We need to see the emails. If he apologized to that young boy about violating him and being a dirty old man, we need to see the evidence, and we need to validate that evidence as a community. We need that as a community. He apologized for being a dirty old man. The plaintiff name is Giuseppe Corlett, says he was 21 in 2003. So this happened in 2003 when he sought guidance from McClurkin while struggling to reconcile his sexuality with his faith, according to NBC News. According to the lawsuit, Corlett attended Donnie McClurkin's church in Long Island. Now, this is exactly what I'm saying. This church is not too far from where I live. In Long Island. Let me read that. In Long Island, New York. After reading the pastor's autobiography, which described homosexuality as a curse, he claimed to have overcome. Corletti told NBC News that after a church event where McClurkin spoke about being R-worded as a child, we're going to get to that, he was invited to meet with him and initially believed the relationship was mentoring. He now alleges he was groomed from the beginning. The lawsuit claims McClurkin violated Corlett during a so-called Pray the Gay Away spiritual session, with the abuse escalating over several years. While Corlett worked as McClurkin's assistant and traveled with Corlett, says McClurkin role as both mentor and employer. So he had this young man around. He had this man around. He was mentoring this man. He was, having sessions with this man. Salute to Sinclair. I see Sinclair's in the building. What's up, Sinclair? He had this young boy. He was doing spiritual healing with him. He was an employer with this young boy. made it difficult to speak out. McClurkin, now 66, denies the allegation. His attorney called the claims categorically false, saying McClurkin never engaged in sexual abuse, assault, or coercion, and that the lawsuit mischaracterizes interaction that occurred decades ago. Now, let me read what Sinclair says. He says, "Hello, chat." Let me pin what Sinclair had to say. Hold on, let me make sure. Yeah, make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Now, let's get to Donnie McClurkin, right? Now, like I said, if this is true, now I'm not here to cast excursions on Donnie McClurkin if this is not true. If it's not true, then it's not true. But if it's true, Donnie McClurkin, you need to be ostracized by the black community. We continually see this in the black church. And I would hate to, listen, he's a pastor in my community. Donnie McClurkin is a pastor in my community, right? He has a church not too far away from where I live. Now, if you're doing this in the black community, Donnie McClurkin, respectfully, you need to be ostracized by the community. That doesn't mean that you can't have your faith. Doesn't mean that you can't still be a believer. Doesn't mean that you can't have redemption and salvation. You are deserving of that. But you need to step down from your role if this is true. If you did this to this young boy, if you have these emails apologizing that you violated this young boy and did this to this young man in 2003, we need you to respectfully step down and give your leadership and give your pastoral duties to another person, because this is abominable, and we can't have this as a community. We continue to see this. I mean, how long ago was Eddie Long? When Eddie Long was out here doing this to young boys, violating young boys, sexually assaulting young boys. We've seen this in the church over and over and over again. And that's why I'm asking, what is going on in the black church where these young black boys are being sexually violated, sexually preyed upon? I'm just asking the question. Here are these young boys. Some of them are, in my opinion, some of them are sexually confused. Some of them are actually LGBTQ, where they strongly believe that what they're doing or what they feel is right. And some of these boys just need some tutelage. Some of these boys just need some salvation. But here you have a predatory pastor or a predatory spiritual leader. And what do? They violate that trust. They violate that young person. They further corrupt that young person. And now you have a situation like this. We've seen this with Eddie Long and other pastors. Sinclair says, oh, hold on. We need boots on the ground. Do a live stream in front of the church. I may have to. I may have to ask. To be honest, Sinclair, I want to see more. I want to see more evidence and proof of these allegations. These are only allegations. I don't think it's fair to Donnie McClurkin, and I don't think it's fair to the victim to just jump out the window yet. Now, if we get some information, now there's an email. There's an alleged email that was sent to the victim apologizing, where Donnie McClurkin apologized for sexually assaulting the young man and calling himself a dirty old man. Now, if there's proof of that email, we may have to do a live stream in front of that church. We may have to do that. We may have to. Because if there's a paper trail, if there's proof, if there's categorically proof of what happened, we may need to go further deep into this topic here. Because now, let me get into this, right? Let me just get into this, because I did see this article, and I thought this article was very intriguing, what I read about, Donnie McClurkin's past. I thought this was very interesting, what I read about his past. Let me find the article. Give me 1 second. Maybe I should have done a vertical stream on the computer so I could show you guys this article. Now, this article is from Out Jersey. It says, Donnie McClurkin struggles with sexuality mirrors the black church. Here's the article. You guys can look at that article. You can look it up on your computer screens, whatever you guys feel like, whenever you guys have the time. And Donnie McClurkin, homophobic past came back to haunt him. He talks about how this is his quote. This is his quote. I didn't know really what a woman wanted, McClurkin said, on Uncensored. I've messed up more than I've had good. My past relationships were a sprinkle of everything, men and women. So he's pretty much talking about how he used to dabble in both. He used to dabble in men and women. He talked about how he used to have homoerotical relationships. Let me see if I can find that other part. McCurkin's status telling the truth about his sexual past. Many of us can't pretend to care because of decades of. Hold on. McClurkin's sexuality has been an open secret. However, now at 61, McClurkin laments about growing old and being alone because of his sexuality. While the black LGBTQ community would applaud someone of McClurkin's status, telling the truth about his sexual past, because he talked about how he used to be in gay relationships. Um, just give me 1 second. This is more an article chastising about his words, because the black church sometimes they could come out and say things in against the LGBTQ community, which they are supposed to be if you're speaking in a Bible based sense. Salute to FBA. I see he's in the building. What the FBA said. He says, I always knew Donnie was a little zesty. Yeah, listen, people have said that about Donnie McClurkin. He's not he wasn't that's not the first time I've heard that about Donnie McClurkin. Um, McClurkin attributed his homosexuality. Now, this is what the article reads. McClurkin attributed his homosexuality to being R-worded twice as a child. First at age 8 and at a brother's funeral by his uncle, then at age 13 by his cousin, his uncle's son. Now, he talks about how he was violated as a young age. Now, this is my question. Did Donnie McClurkin do this? Respectfully, did he do this? And I think as a community, we need to know. We need to know if he did this in the community. Are more black boys at risk? Now, this happened in 2003. This was over. This is over what 20 years ago at this point. Um, us as a community, we deserve to know because this continues to happen. I mean, from Eddie Long, and what about? Did that also happen with Jamal Bryant? Give me 1 second. Let me just look that up real quick. I mean, we got a bunch of Africa Bambatas in the church, man. It's going crazy. All these Africa Bambatas in the church. What's going on? Hold on. Because there's another preacher. I'm trying to think. Was it Jamal Bryant or was it somebody else? Pastor. It may not be. It may not be Jamal Bryant. It might be somebody else. Hold on, Pastor. Give me 1 second, because there's. I know Eddie Long had. I know it was Eddie Long, and it was probably somebody else. Let me see something. Hold on. Sinclair says, so wait, he was a victim and goes on to be a perpetrator. Yeah, listen, man. That happens a lot, it seems. Doesn't it seem like that happens a lot? I mean, think about it. Hassan Campbell, he talked about that. He said that he was a victim and he said he did that as a child. He said he was doing that to other children when he was that age. Um, Allegedly, they say Africa Bambaataa. They said that happened to him as a young man. And he went on to do that to young men. So it's the cycle of victims. It's the cycle of it's a nasty cycle. We've seen this before. Now, like I said, I don't want to put this on Donnie McClurkin just yet. I do think he deserves to fight his case, fight his accuser. We don't know if this is true. My thing, this is more of an indictment on the black church, in my opinion. I have more reservations to say that this is an indictment of the black church. Why does this keep happening in the black church? Why do we see all of these young black boys that are confused about their sexuality? In my opinion, I don't believe these young black boys are gay. I believe that these young black boys are confused about their sexuality. And instead of being a positive black role model, um, giving these young boys salvation, giving these young boys some guidance, teaching these boys about the Bible in totality, you have a predatory black preacher who's confused about his sexuality. And he goes on to violate those young boys. I mean, we continue to see this. I mean, there was Eddie Long. There's another pastor that I'm forgetting. I forgot his name. It's gonna come to me at some point. Um, but we've seen this many times, and of course you got the Catholic priest. I mean, we can't. I mean, that's well documented of all the Catholic priests. But I'm more focusing on the black church. Why is this happening in the black church? Is there a homosexuality problem in the black church that needs to be addressed? Because in my opinion, I feel like the black church has been a safe haven for LGBTQ, whether people would like to admit it or not. I mean, you got to think about it. You got the choir, you got the flag team, you got the nursing board. You have a lot of activities that LGBTQ black kids get involved in the church. Let's be real. And we have to also be honest about black church in today's era. There's not a lot of black men in church. There's never really been a lot of black men in church. But even more today, it's mostly black women. When you go to a standard black church in America today, it's predominantly black women. You might get a couple of married brothers in there, they're there with their wives, sprinkled in there, but for the majority, it's gonna be black women in there. Gonna be black women in there with their little funny hats, with the you got the younger sisters, you got the older mothers of the church. It's predominantly black women. So, and black women, a lot of them, they may have, gay sons that are LGBTQ, and they're a little bit more nurturing of that situation and of that lifestyle. It's not like you're dealing with, mostly men, you're dealing with nurturing women. And a lot of them are, inviting of that. So to have that in the church it would almost go hand in hand to have that going down in the church. Um, Sinclair says B Stinger. Yes, B Stinger. B Stinger was another one. B Stinger was another one who allegedly was doing these things, and it snowballed into him doing this to other people. We've seen this before, where victims create more victims. It's absolutely ridiculous. FBA says some other dude named B Stinger said he got ran through by Bambooty. Yeah, listen, man. Bambada is a nasty old man, and he did all of that, man. He created, and let's be honest about Bambada. He has over, I'm gonna give a ballpark figure. He probably has over 50 victims. Over 50 victims. And that's probably off the top of my head. Because allegedly he's been going overseas doing these things, and there's people overseas. I remember I read an article about a rapper from overseas attacked him because he violated him. He has a lot of victims. There's men popping up from 1978, 1980, talking about how Bambaataa violated them as a child. So he has a lot of victims. He has a lot of victims. Um, so it's very nasty. That whole case is very nasty. FBA says that's messed up though. How could he have not been caught? Yeah, the thing about the Bambaataa thing, in my opinion, the reason why Bambaataa never got caught, it's a sad situation. First of all, you have to remember that a lot of his victims were, I'm talking about from back in the day, like the Hassan Campbells, the Bee Stingers. A lot of those situations happened in the 80s. And they probably happened in the urban areas where things were less likely to be reported on. A lot of things were on the hush, and a lot of people don't want to say it, but there was an area of acceptance that people allowed Bambaataa to come. I'm of the belief that people knew that Bambaataa was a predator, um, and they allowed it. There was an atmosphere of acceptance, not only from the Zulu nation, but of the people in that community. They allowed it because Bambaataa was looked at as a man of prominence. He was at that particular time, I believe he was one of the I believe he was part of the Black Spades, wasn't he? Wasn't he like the part of the Black Spades? So he had power, and he was also uniting people. Back in those days, New York, there was a lot of different gangs, and hip hop was used to bring unity within the city, and stop the violence. And people were coming together, and no longer gang banging and coming under the flag of hip hop. And Zulu Nation and Bambaataa had a lot of respect. But I'm of the belief that there was an atmosphere of acceptance that allowed him to do those things. So a lot of those things, in my opinion, never got reported on. It was the '80s. People were less likely to go to the police about a situation like that. You got to understand, we're talking about young men. How many young men are going to admit something like that? How many young men are going to come forward and talk about the things that happened to them? How many young men are going to go to a police station and report about Bambaataa doing this to them? A lot of those young men sat on that for a long time up until Hassan and other people came forward. So I believe that's probably what happened and why he never got caught. And of course, the time frame of the crimes and when it happened, and people not being able to go back and charge him with those crimes. Um, yeah, man, it's a messed up situation. And I also think Bambaataa used mental manipulation. You can see it when you listen to Hassan Campbell tell his story. He manipulated Hassan Campbell. He manipulated him. For Hassan Campbell to be as young as he was and to be violated by Bambaataa, and for him to go all of those years up until maybe, let's say 30 plus, let's say 31. Because Bambaataa and Hassan, they were cool. They were friends. Hassan Campbell was in his 30s, still running around with Bambaataa. So that tells me that he was mentally manipulating these young men as well, in my opinion. You know, he was manipulating these men. He was violating these men, in my opinion. So we've seen this, and let's be honest, it happens in the black church. What's the difference from what Bambaataa did and allegedly what possibly Donnie McClurkin may have done and what Eddie Long had done? These people were looked at as leaders, people that people follow, people that look at these people as someone of influence, of power, and instead of using that power to help heal, to educate, they say, no, I'm going to use this power to be a predator, to violate, to hurt young men in that community. I mean, we've seen this. And it's a sad situation. It really is. You know? Yeah, man. I mean, and like I said, I'm going to say this. I'm not going to, go hard on Donnie just yet. Let's get more information. I'm not ready to go 10 toes down on just yet. Let's wait. Like his same thing with the Bambaataa situation when it first started. When I first heard the first person come forward on Africa Bambaataa, I wanted to reserve my judgment. I wanted to say, you know what? I've never heard this before about Bambaataa. I want to see more information. And then when we started to see the victims come forward and people tell their stories, and just the sea of victims coming forward, then it started to click. Then he comes with the interview where he's stumbling and bumbling over his words and he sounds like a complete idiot. Then he just looks guilty. So ultimately, I want to reserve my judgment for Donnie McClurkin. Let's see how he handles this. Will he, tell the truth? Will he say, this is false, or will he stand his ground? Will he plead his innocence? Will he provide proof of his innocence? Or are we going to see more people come forward? Are we going to see more people say he did this, he victimized them? Are we going to see that? So I want to reserve my judgment. I don't want to go too hard on Donnie McClurkin. I believe he deserves at least to, plead his case. Let him plead his case, and we'll see what happens forward. Maybe he is innocent. Maybe he did not do this. Maybe he is an innocent man, and someone's creating false narratives on him. I don't want to. I want to reserve my judgment and not run off the mouth just yet. But I do understand that this is a problem in the black church. FBA says dudes was on Hassan's head. They said he wasn't bamboozled. Dude Zip said they was in a relationship, and Bam must have had good D for Hassan to stick around. Now let me address that. Right? Listen. You know. The Hassan situation is a very tricky situation because, on one hand, I do believe Hassan was victimized as a young child. I do believe that. When he says that, I believe him. But at a certain point, I do believe that there was something there. I do believe that there was a love there. Now, I don't know if it was a love like a man loves a woman love, or if it was like how I don't know. I don't know what it was, but it was something. It was something there that made him care for this man for a long time, because he talks about it, and he romanticizes it. He says, Bambada, he brought food into my family's home, and he did this and he did that. But the meanwhile, he allegedly he died to you. He sexually violated you. He did all these monstrous things to you. He showed you a book with all these different kids that he violated. I mean, it sounds horrible, but he finds a place to say, well, I still care about this man. I still love this man, up until the point where he's 30 plus years old and he's in pictures with him, still loving him, up until the point where a young boy allegedly stabs Bambada for making a move on him, and Bambada gives Hassan Campbell a picture of a young boy to do something to him, to violate him, to, I guess, do something violent to him. Um, it's puzzling. It's puzzling to say the least. So I do believe that he was victimized. I do believe that he was violated as a young child, but there's also a part of me that says Hassan may have been in love. Hassan may have been, he may not want to admit it, he may not want to say it, but I do believe that he was in love. I don't know if that was a love like how a man loves a woman, but it was some form of love that he felt for this man. I have to be honest. To stick around after he did all these violating things to you. Just my opinion, you know? Maybe it was transactional. Sinclair says, maybe it was transactional. Listen, it may have been, pay for play, it may have been transactional, it may have been a transactional relationship. I don't think you can take any of that off the table. Um, I don't think you can take any of that off the table. Even in this situation, when we're talking about Donnie McClurkin, I mean, these alleged crimes, where he said he was victimized, happened in 2003. That's a long time ago. What was going on back then? Because think about it. I read the report. It said this happened in 2003. He went to Donnie McClurkin for a mentorship, to pray the gay away. He went to him to have some type of sessions to give him some type of spiritual awakening away from homosexuality. Um, then years later, he's talking about he's working. He worked for him. So think about it. It went from a mentorship, a spiritual counselor, to a sexual relationship, to you working with him, all in a span of a few years or whatever. So clearly, maybe people just maybe both sides are just not honest about what really happened. Maybe Hassan is not honest about the totality of their relationship, meaning, yeah, there may be some gray area on some things, and maybe, yeah, he was violated as a young child, but maybe in the same sense, you became of age and you indulge in that relationship. And now you're reflecting on your mistakes in terms of doing that. Same thing with this Donnie McClurkin situation. Maybe, I have no proof, maybe this young man went to Donnie McClurkin for some spiritual healing. It turned into a sexual relationship. You worked with him, he let you go, and now you feel stupid or you're regretful about the relationship that you had with him. It could be both. I don't think we should take that off the table because a lot of people want to make it sound like, oh, he was a victim, or oh, he was a perv and this, that, and I mean, at a certain point, if you're sticking around and it was, I mean, let's put it like this. Let's put it like this. We're all gonna frown upon that young girl in high school, right? Let's say a girl that's 16 years old. We're all gonna frown at that old man pulling up to their high school, picking up that young girl and putting her in a hoop ride. Let's say you pull up in a Cadillac, 16-year-old girl hopping in that 40-year-old man's Cadillac, driving off. I used to see it all the time in my neighborhood. I used to see old dudes pulling up to the high school. And we know that's not your father. We seen your father. We seen your mother. Some of these girls didn't even have fathers. So we knew that wasn't your father. Young girls hopping in those cars. At that particular time, I would say that young girl was a victim. Now, if we fast forward years later, and let's say that 18, 19-year-old girl sticks around, maybe let's say she has a child, maybe that man marries her, or maybe that man is still in a relationship with her. Is that woman still a victim? She was a victim when she was 16. I grant you that. But when she turns 18, when she's 19, when she's 20, when she has a child with that man, when she's still with that man, that old man that picked her up when she was 16, is she still a victim? Is she still a victim then? Because we could put that to these situations as well. We could look at that situation with Bambaataa. We could look at the situation, hypothetically with Donnie McClurkin, because he's only being accused, and say, at what point in time were these persons a victim, and what point in time was this person a willing participant in this relationship with this person? I mean, I don't think we should take that off the table. You know, FBA says right, that was the tricky part because he said he loved Bam like a father, but I don't know any dads that would do that to their kid. Yeah, it's very weird. It's very weird that he did use that analogy. He loved him like a father. Um, yeah, man, it's disturbing. It's disturbing, and the way he looks at it, the way he articulates him staying around. He says that Hassan. I've heard his story 100 times. He chalks it up to being um what's the word he used? I heard Sinetta making fun of it when he what's the word? Oh man, it's not coming to me. Yeah, but he chalks it up to just being mentally manipulated, and he admits that Africa Bambaataa did a one on him, but I forgot what the word is. It's a word. Um, oh man, what's the word? Hold on, let me see if I can find it. See if I can find the word. Let me see. Hold on, white. Hold on, y'all. Hold on, give me 1 second. Yeah, I don't know. It's not not grooming. Sinclair says grooming. No, the word is not grooming. It's almost like when you're kidnapped and you're being brainwashed almost. Um, what's the white girl's name that got kidnapped by the Black Radical group? They said that it happened to her, that she was not brainwashed, but oh man, it's not coming to me. But it's sort of like grooming. You could say grooming, but that's not the word. Grooming is not the word. Sinclair says freaking schoolyard dogs. Yeah, that I mean, I seen it all the time in my high school. It was so many old men pulling up to my high school all of the time. Patty Hearst. Yeah, yeah, there you go. Patty Hearst. Um, what did they say happened to Patty Hearst? They said Patty Hearst, they said she was what? Not groomed, but they said, hold on. What's the word? Stockholm syndrome. There you go. Thank you, Sinclair. Stockholm syndrome. There you go. Hassan said it was Stockholm syndrome. Thank you. There you go. That's what I was looking for. Yeah. Yeah, Stockholm syndrome. There you go. It was not coming to me. Like, for some reason, like, it wasn't coming to me. But yeah, Stockholm syndrome. There you go. Hassan chalked it up to Stockholm syndrome. He said the reason he stuck around the reason why he still loved Bambaataa, because it was Stockholm syndrome. And I remember that. That whole case study, because I remember Patty Hearst. They said the same thing about Patty Hearst. They said the reason why Patty Hearst stuck around with the Black Radical group is because she had Stockholm syndrome. So that's what made me remember what that was. Yeah, but yeah, Patty Hearst and yeah, Hassan said he had Stockholm syndrome. That's what he chalked it up to with Bambaataa. He said the reason why I stayed, the reason why, I still loved him, cared about him, and yada yada yada. He chalked it up to Stockholm syndrome. You know, me personally, I don't believe that. Same thing with the Patty Hearst situation. I don't believe that. I don't believe neither one of those situations. I don't believe neither one of those situations. I don't believe it was Stockholm syndrome for neither one of them. But yeah, that's what Hassan chalked it up to, Stockholm syndrome. Listen, at the end of the day, whether Hassan was with it at a certain point, at the end of the day, I still say he's a victim. I still say Hassan is a victim. Hassan was a victim. He was a young boy in an impoverished, poverty-stricken community, and Bambaataa took advantage of him. I can't take that away from him. I'm not gonna say Hassan was with it the whole time. Even if he was with it, he was a kid. He was a kid. Same thing with that teenage girl that hopped in that car with that 40-year-old. She was a victim. It doesn't matter if she wanted to go. It doesn't matter if she wanted to be with that 40-year-old. She was a victim. She was violated, and she had no place being there. So I feel the same thing with Hassan. It's like, the same thing with Hassan. Even if he wanted, to be with Bambaataa, or if he had feelings for Bambaataa, doesn't matter. He was still a victim. So when people make fun of him, I don't necessarily like that, because I don't think he should be made fun of. I think the only thing I would challenge Hassan on is the fact that he stayed. That's the only thing I would challenge him on. That he stayed, he kept caring for Bambaataa. But in terms of him being a victim, he was a victim. No question, he was a victim. Exactly. Sinclair says children can't consent. I agree. I agree. And you see the same thing with all these situations. You see it with the Bambaataa situation. You see it with, all of these different situations when it comes with children, you know? And it's messed up. And we keep seeing this in the black church. How many times are we going to see this in the black church? How many times? And let's be honest, respectfully, no disrespect to the black church, but it's a hotbed for homosexuality. Let's be honest. You got the young black boys with the tambourines, pop pop. You know good and damn well that boy is zesty hitting that tambourine like that. Put a football in that young boy's hand. Put a basketball. Get that young boy some boxing gloves. You got that black boy in church, and there's no black men in the church to correct that because it's all black women, majority black women, not a lot of masculine men in there to correct that and say, listen, you a little too zesty hitting that tambourine. We're gonna go. We're gonna go. To the boxing. We're gonna go to the boxing ring. You know what I mean? We're gonna bring you around some cute girls your age and give you some social skills. We're gonna teach you how to fix a carburetor. We're gonna take you outside and show you how to. There's no black men in church teaching masculinity. You got these these zesty black boys, tambourine. That's the problem. I'm just keeping it real. I'm keeping it real. You got these, respectfully, you got these sexually confused young black boys, probably sexually confused. They're at a crossroads in their lives where they're gonna go this way or they're gonna go that way. Instead of having and let's be real, we don't have those, real black men in church, like I said. We don't have like when I was going to church, there was real men going to church. Like when I went to church, I went to a Kojic church, Pentecostal church in Queens. There was real men in that church. I'm talking about men that was married 30, 40 years. Men that had to go to work. Men that wasn't their whole life wasn't church. Like I'm here for Sunday, but I got work tomorrow. Like real men that went to work that could fix cars, that could fix a tire, that could work on a roof, that was a handyman, that was a businessman. There were real men in the church that I went to. And I think over the years, there's been a lot of black men that's not in the church anymore. And you got a lot of these young black boys in there, and some of them are respectfully are zesty. They're hitting that tambourine. Some of them are on the flag team. They're doing all things with the flags, and they on the flag team. They hitting the tambourine. They singing on the choir. Ooh, ooh. You got a young little Richard, respectfully, on the choir, but there's no black men in that church teaching that young boy masculinity. There's no black men in that church teaching that kid, what happened to the black masculinity in church? What happened to it? Just keeping it real. FBA says, hold on, let me catch up. BX Mel is in here too. What's up, BX? BX Mel said it's a sissy fest in church now. It's let's just say mooks, thoughts and sugar mamas. I agree. FBA says that can be an issue too. That's a fact. I grew up living with my dad, and I'm still working on shows. Emotion. That's a fact. I'm just gonna catch up. She says happy. Sakura said happy New Year. They asked for. Hold on. They asked for ties too. Uh, Now they got websites to accept payment. Yeah, I've seen that. They got websites where they're getting payments for tithes now. Because growing up with your dad, only sometimes you don't learn basic things like compassion and all that soft stuff. I agree with that. Yeah, man. But I mean, listen, I agree. The black church, it's not what it used to be. It's not what it used to be. There used to be real men that were in church. There's no real men in church no more. I don't see it anymore. You got a lot of zesty black pastors that are preaching the word, or let's say a watered down version of the word. Got a lot of women, respectfully, and listen, women are the backbone of church, of the black church, but it's probably too many women in black church. There's not enough men, and you got a lot of. And respectfully, the kids are going to go to church. The kids are going to go to church with their mother, and I think that's a positive thing. There's nothing wrong with black kids going to church. I think that's a positive thing. But where are the masculine role models? Hold on, my fault, y'all. I opened up my pod for a second. Where are the masculine role models in church? What happened to them? What happened? Um, BX Mel says they called my homies' moms out for not donating enough at church, and I was done after that. Yeah, the black church can be very predatory when it comes to funds, when it comes to money. Very predatory. Very. Here you are in your last dollar. They throwing a collection plate around. The Bible says God loves the cheerful giver. Why can't you just be happy with what I have? If I have $15 and I decide to give you two or three, why is that not enough? Why are you asking for this and why are you asking for that? And if you read your Bible, the church is not supposed to be taking tithes. Tithes was supposed to be a percentage that went to the Levitical priests because they had no inheritance. Now, let me ask this: why is the black church getting tithes? I thought the black church don't follow the Old Testament, right? You're not following the other 600 plus commandments, but you want to follow that commandment of taking your tithe. You ain't following the other 600 commandments. You're still eating pork, still eating shrimp, still not keeping the Sabbath. You ain't following the other 600 commandments, but you want to keep the tithes. It's very interesting. It's a very skewed version of the Bible. And it can be very predatory on the pockets. Because let's be honest, the black church has taken a lot from the black community. The black church has taken a lot from the black community. We just got to be honest about that. And I'm not saying that black churches have never given back, because there have been some black churches that have given back to their community. But the black church, as we know it, has taken a lot as well. Just a fact. We got 9 people in the building. I need you to hit this like button. We only got 5 likes, so I need you to hit that like button. FBA says kids need mom and dad, not just masculine with feminine. I agree. The African churches are perv central. I was scared to tell people I love them until I was 20. I'm trying to catch. They're all Hebrew Israelites. These guys are masculine, very Old Testament. You talking about, okay? BX Mel says they're supposed to help the congregation when they're struggling, but they close the doors on people like Joel Osteen. That's a fact. Joel Osteen wouldn't let people in his church during Katrina. That's a fact. Actually, it wasn't Katrina. It was the flood in Houston, because his church is in Houston. I think Katrina was happened in Louisiana. I forgot the flood that was in Houston. It was a flood in Houston, though, definitely. And he wasn't letting them in. He was telling them, "Nah, y'all can't come in. Y'all can't ruin my rugs. We got new rugs in the church." He valued his rugs in the church over the well-being of the church members. These are your fellow brethren in Christ. And he said, nah, 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 y'all gonna ruin my rugs. My rugs is more important than your life or where your well-being. That was crazy. And I think, wasn't it Kenneth Copeland? Something happened. I think COVID happened. And he was telling the members, yeah, you can't come to church. The church, we can't have people in church for COVID, but you can slide your donation underneath the door. Just slide your donation underneath the door. Here, people are suffering for COVID. They're trying to figure out this pandemic happening all around the world, and you're still requesting them to pull up. You're not even letting them in. You're not letting them in the church, but you're still telling them to slide that donation underneath the door. Have you no shame? Do y'all remember that? Do y'all remember that? BX Mel, don't matter. He's still not a man of God like he says he is. Don't forget TD Grapes was at them Diddy parties. Oh man. I don't know if TD Jakes was at the Diddy party. I do know he was cool with Diddy. Was he at the Diddy party? We'll never know. I think that if there was something on those tapes in terms of TD Jakes being on those Diddy party, I think that would have came out in court. That would have came out in court. I believe so. I think he just came to the parties, not the parties. I don't think TD Jakes was like, getting his ass cheeks, clapped by Diddy. I just think he might have just been, maybe he came to a few of the parties, not the parties, but the parties, like the party outside with the people in all white, the music playing. I think he probably came out to one of those functions and he probably left soon after. Um, people are still saying he got his cheeks clapped, but I don't think that happened. I don't know if it happened, but I don't think it happened. BX Mel says he was trying to save souls with baby oil. That's crazy. TD cakes. They was calling them TD cakes. Listen, man, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. This is just a messed up situation, you know? It's a really messed up situation. Because at the end of the day, let's be real. The only people suffering from this situation, whether you look at the Bambada situation, whether you look at the Eddie Long situation, whether you look at this situation, if it turns out to be true, the only person and the only victims are young black boys that are confused about their sexuality. That's the only person that's losing. That's the only person that's the only victim here. You know, it's these young black boys that are in church. They're probably confused about their sexuality. It's the young black boy that's in the projects, whether it be Bambada, and they're confused about their sexuality, and they're being victimized. They don't have strong black role models, masculine role models to help guide them into the right direction. That's the only victim here. That's the only victim. Um, oh my goodness, Tyler Perry. BX says Tyler Perry is up next to be taken down. Listen, it's getting hot for Tyler Perry. It's getting hot for Tyler Perry. My thing is this, right? Because Tyler Perry, he's another, he's a byproduct of the black church. We know that homosexuality exists in the black church, right? Um, we have to just be honest about it. It exists in the black church. Whether it be this situation, whether it be Tyler Perry, purchasing penis, it exists in the black church. It needs to be it needs to be called out. A lot of these black pastors and black leaders in the church, they need to call this out. They need to have sermons. They need to call out people being let's say being exposed. They need to, the black leaders of the church today, they need to call these people out that are exploiting and that are violating young black boys. If you're a spiritual leader, if you're a pastor and you're running a congregation, you're in charge of a congregation, and you feel that are the spiritual leader of the church and you are the voice of reason and you're the voice of truth, you need to call out these charlatans. You need to call out these black preachers that are victimizing young boys. If it turns out to be Donnie McClurkin has done this, they need to. BX Mel says Hassan wasn't no frail kid. He was supposed to be a menace, right? He says he's a victim, but says he was a gangster with the same breath. Were you a victim or participant? See, listen, this is what I'm going to say about Hassan, right? Hassan was a victim. Let's not take that away from him. Hassan was a kid. BX Mel, You have to look at Hassan like I said, you have to look at Hassan like that 16-year-old girl in high school that hopped in that car with that 40-year-old man. You got to look at him like that. You can't look at him at 40 or 30 or 50 and say he's a gangster and yada, yada, yada. Look at Hassan, the 13, 14, 16-year-old boy, maybe confused about his sexuality, maybe confused about his place in life, maybe, having no male role models or positive black role models in his life, and a Bambada coming into his life and victimizing him. You can't look at him today as an adult and judge him off of the things he's saying now. Look at him as a child. Same thing with that young girl. When that young girl hopped into that car with that old man, right? That she had no business being in the car with that old man. You didn't look at that girl and said, "Oh, she know what she doing. Oh, she just a fast little girl." Don't look at her like that. She's a child. She was victimized, right? Now, if she becomes of age, she turns 18, 19, 20, she's still with that old man, she has a child with that old man, then you could say, okay, he victimized that young girl, and then she decided to stay with him and be with him. Same thing with Hassan. I would look at him and say, Hassan, he was victimized by Bambada. That was wrong. He decided to stay in his life. He had feelings for him, and he decided to ride with him later on in his life. But I don't look at him and say, "Oh, he was a gangster. He was a gangster, right? He knew what he was doing." He was a child. Come on, let's be a little bit respectful of the adolescent years. Let's be a little bit more respectful of his formative years. Like, I don't think it's fair to look at the young kid, just because of what he said. And I understand, I understand, the things Hassan says and the things he does, and you could probably not have any remorse for him, but I look at it as him being a child. That's just my opinion. BX says he should have packed bags or something. Nigga was sleeping with Bam for oh my gosh, for noodles. This nigga BX Mel is messed up. This nigga said he was sleeping with Bambada for ramen noodles. I don't even think ramen noodles was out back then. Like, that was like 80, that was like 85, 86, 88 maybe. I don't even think niggas was up on ramen noodles back then. Back then it was probably bologna sandwiches and Spam and government cheese back then. I don't think ramen noodles was out back then. I don't think niggas was up on ramen noodles back then. BX Mel says he was old enough not to go back for more pickle. This nigga going. This nigga's going in. Sinclair says any pastor abusing members of the parish should have stacked charges. I agree. I agree. I agree. Any spiritual leader, especially if you're in the black community, any spiritual leader that has these type of charges and it turns out to be true, needs to be ostracized, not just by the congregation, but by the community. That very same black community that allowed this predator to build because let's be honest, a church is an institution. We allowed them to build this institution in our community. You are taking money from our people in our community. You are a wolf in sheep's clothing. You're taking money. You're violating young black youths. You need to be ostracized. You need to be excommunicated from leadership in our community. Does it mean that you can't have redemption? Does it mean you can't have salvation? Does it mean that you don't deserve a second chance? Not at being a pastor, but a second chance at fixing your life or coming out of your old ways. But you can't be a spiritual leader. You can't be a spiritual leader, and you must ask for forgiveness. You must step down and allow someone else to take the helm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sinclair says abuse of authority. I agree. An absolute and total abuse of authority. Absolutely. To the highest degree. BX Mel says the women down south wear some scandalous dresses to church. Just let everyone know who Jezebel. That's a fact. That's a fact. See, that's what I'm saying, BX. The church has turned into something else. It's not what it used to be. When I was going to church back when I was a youth, there was a standard. There was a standard. Um, women couldn't come to church dressing in a mini skirt and a halter top with lip gloss and all this stuff like that. You had to be, dressing hospitable, long dresses, makeup, but nothing, overboard, nothing, just ridiculous looking. With your hair done, and respectable, right? We're a long ways from that. You got, women coming to church and party dresses, high heels. Some of them are going to churches. Some of them are going to churches in bonnets. It's not what it used to be. Same thing with the men. There used to be a standard of men in black church. They were masculine men in black church. That's no longer a thing. We don't see that anymore. You know? BX Mel says the men trying to give a sermon and all he sees is legs and titties in front of row. Now that's pressure. That's a fact. That's a fact. That's where we are in the black church. It's a sad situation, bro. But listen, guys, it's been real. I've been on here for a hot hour. I got to get the gym to tomorrow. I gotta go to the gym tomorrow. Get my workout on. More than likely, I'm going to do another live tomorrow. I'm going to keep the pace up of these lives. I'm probably going to do more lives from the phone because it's a lot more easier. Instead of hooking up my computer, logging it on, and doing this and doing that, I'm probably going to do a lot more phone lives, vertical lives. We will do some computer lives every now and then, but for now we're going to be doing a lot more phone lives because it's just a little bit more easier for me to do. But with that being said, listen, guys, you guys have a good night. Salute to Sinclair, FBA, BX Mel. Salute to everybody that's in the chat. Everybody that came through. You guys have a good night. And I will probably do a lot more than I know I'm gonna do a live tomorrow. We're gonna figure out a topic for tomorrow. Maybe we'll talk more about Trump and Maduro and Trump gangstering his way. And what happens next with Maduro? I'm curious to see what happens next with Maduro. So maybe we'll get into Maduro and Trump tomorrow. We talked a little bit about that yesterday, I believe. So we'll see what happens. But with that being said, you guys have a good night. And God willing, we'll see you guys tomorrow, man. Toodles.